All right, so I've been in this real estate wholesaling game for over 20 years. And during that time, I've accumulated a lot of knowledge, and I want to share that knowledge with you and the principles around what it takes in order to be successful in this real estate wholesaling business. And these are not tactical things. These are principles that if you learn and understand these principles and you accept them, you're going to have easier success, faster, and most importantly, avoid some of the pitfalls that I have experienced myself. So let's go ahead and go to principle number 1, which is that everything works, but not everything works at once. When I started in the business, I made the most crucial mistake that I see a lot of people make right now, which is that I went after everything because I didn't know what was going to work. So I was afraid of just trying something and then that thing not working, and then at the end I'm left with no particular strategy. And then what I realized is that what I decided to do was just say, hey, I'm going to go after everything. I mean, I'm going to door knock, I'm going to go ahead and cold call, I'm going to work realtors, I'm going to do everything. And then what ended up happening is I made no money. And that was because I was spread out too thin. And it was only when I, at that time, decided I'm going to focus only on direct mail. Because at that time, back then, I saw that the most experienced investors, the ones that were doing the best, were doing direct mail. And then I thought to myself, you know what? Pick one thing and go all in. And I remember getting a credit card in the mail, Discover, and I didn't know why they sent it. It had an $8,000 balance on it. And I decided to take that card and I bet it on black, bet it on direct mail. And I said, you know what? If it don't work, then I guess Discover ain't gonna get their money. But luckily for you and I, because that's why I'm sitting here with you today, it worked. And I was able to figure out direct mail, and the rest, I would say is history. And so out there, you know, I know I make a big stink about, oh, you're doing cold calling, you're doing all these other antiquated techniques because, of course, I do online marketing, and I always think that that's the best way. However, I would say that there's people out there that are killing it with cold calling, that are doing amazing with direct mail. So everything works as long as you focus on that one thing and you become a master at it. Because when I went into direct mail, I decided I'm going to become a master at direct mail, and I'm gonna own that bitch. And I did, and that's what ended up happening. And so I would say, look, whatever you go after, pick one thing and become the master at it. And I guarantee you that you're going to make it work. You just have to devote yourself to it, and that is principle number 1. Principle number 2 is choose a strategy that fits your personality. You know, I'm not a sales guy. I've always struggled with sales. And yeah, you might see me here, Chico, you're so personable and you're talking to me and everything else. Yeah, but I don't like sales. You know, the minute I get on the phone call is the minute I want to get off of that phone call. Within 2 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, how can I figure out how to get this person over the phone? And then when I was talking to sellers, I hated it. I hated it because of the fact that, you know, eventually I got people to do that sort of stuff for me. But, you know, I hearing about the sellers and they go on and on about all the situation in their life. And I'm like, I just want you to sell me your house. Can you just sell me your house? But, you know, knowing that and understanding that, I knew that I couldn't implement a strategy that required me to be heavy on sales. So I couldn't do cold calling. I couldn't do anything like that. And so that's when I decided I have to figure out a way to get something that is bringing me leads inbound. And at the end, through direct mail, that's what I figured out. I figured out a system where people would get the postcards that back then nobody was doing direct mail. And then we had so many calls, actually, that that's the genesis of us using 24-hour recorded messages on our postcards. Because in the minute the mailman delivered the mail, right around 3 o'clock, our phone system would be blowing up with calls. We couldn't even handle the volume. So we had to figure out a way. That's why we figured out 24-hour recorded messages. But I tell you that because at the end, I picked a strategy that fit my personality. If the strategy was door knocking, then I would have failed miserably because it's not in my personality. Some of you are great salespeople, naturally. I'm not that guy. And so as a result, you got to be clear to pick something that fits within your personality. A more systems-driven market, very tactical guy. And so for me, all the technical minutia of, with regards to direct mail and putting all those systems, and now with Facebook ads and TikTok and all that other stuff, all of that stuff there is in my personality, and it's my mojo. So you got to find your mojo, and you got to find a strategy that also fits within that structure. Number 3 is you don't need a tool belt when you get started. You need a sledgehammer. So a lot of you, and I see this all the time, a lot of you, when I've spoken with some of you, you get on the phone and you're telling, and I ask you, when was the last time you did a deal? I've never done a deal, or have not done a deal in like forever. And then, what are you doing? And then they proceed to tell me all the different strategies that they're implementing. And I'm doing subject to, I can do wholesaling, I can do lease options, I can do this, I can do that. But the only thing you can't do, the only thing that, the main important thing that you can't seem to do is actually make any money. And so a lot of you go and you think, oh, they told me I got to have a tool bill. So when a seller comes in, then I got like multiple ways of trying to do a deal with that person. That's really a hunk of bullshit. You need a sledgehammer. And to me, in my opinion, that sledgehammer should be wholesaling, in my opinion, when you're starting out, because you need big checks. And I'll get into that in a little bit later on in this video, but you need a sledgehammer. And you say, well, Chico, if you attack everything with a sledgehammer, it's not going to work. Yes, if I attack everything with a sledgehammer, it's not going to work. But guess what? The things that I need to work will work with that sledgehammer, which is I need big checks. You need checks, 15, 20 grand a pop, to get you out of your job that you hate, and to get some money in your bank account, to maybe go out to dinner, and maybe come down to Miami, rent a Lamborghini, and have a great time. Not judging. I'm not saying you should do that, but you get my drift. So you need, in my opinion, you need a sledgehammer. One way that you're just looking, every seller that comes in, you're like, bam, sledgehammer. Okay, kill that one, but hey, how about that guy? So bam, sledgehammer. That's what you need. One strategy, and that is it. Principle number 4, screw rentals. Get big checks. Some of you, I had a conversation with somebody, and they told me that they had like a huge, I think it was 50 rental properties they had acquired subject to. And I'm on the phone with this guy, and I'm thinking, man, this guy is killing me, killing it. I asked the basic question. I'm like, dude, why are you talking to me about wholesaling, man? You must be banking it. He's like, yeah, man, not making any money. I said, well, how could you not make any money with these rentals? You have so many of them. He's like, yeah, but they're all subject to, on thin margins, and then I'm making a couple $100 a month. But I'm like, couple $100 a month. Even if you make a couple $100 a month and you got 50 of them, that's $10,000 a month. He's like, yeah, but once there's so many properties that every time a repair comes through, by the time the month is over, I ain't got no money. And I'm thinking to myself, where did that strategy at all make sense? At some point, I would think that at 10 properties, you'd be like, maybe I should rethink this. But you got to 50. In that scenario, his best strategy would have been my sledgehammer strategy. Not cold calling, wholesaling. Do deals that you could do 15, 20 grand. Our average deal size is 15 grand. If you did that, then you'd be in a better situation. And if you figured out a system that you could predictably do that every single month, guess what? That's a significantly better business than the 50 rentals you got that barely make you any money. Now you got to deal with crappy ass tenants that need their toilets fixing and all that other jazz. So not a good idea. The principle number 5, your first deal is the most important. It doesn't matter how much you make on that deal. You could have a deal that your first deal you make 30 grand. It could be a deal that you make 500. All right. At the end of the day, obviously we want to do better than $500 for a deal, but let's say you make $1,000 on the deal because you screwed everything up. But think about that deal. Here's what that deal does. That deal proves to you that this is a reality, that this whole business is not some sort of fairy tale that you out there and you look at all these people making money and you're wondering is this for real? No, it's a business that exists. Why? Because now you have been able to do that yourself, which means that now it's real to you. Now you have the confidence, right? You've gotten a greater education than you would have had you just done nothing, right? Because, you made some money, but the education is key. But the deal number 1 buys you belief that you can actually do that. Which then comes into principle number 6 is that your third deal, deal number 3 is the second most important thing. And here's why deal number 3. Deal number 3, by the time you get to deal number 3, you have dealt with a lot of pain in the ass stuff in this business. You have dealt with so many property owners. You have tried to sell a property many, many times, and some of those deals did not go through. Some of those sellers were angry at you. They yelled at you. They called you names. You've had to deal with buyers that don't know what they're doing, buyers that tell you lies, buyers, people that are pretending to be buyers, but they're actually wholesalers, and all the junk that comes with that. And then you finally also got what? Transaction coordination, and you dealt with all the nuances and everything else. So by the time you get to the third deal, you're like a worn, torn veteran. You have been through quite a bit of tours of duty, and now you finally know the business. You know exactly what it's going to take in order to take a business from beginning to end. Our business, from being able to take a deal from beginning to end. So not only have you accomplished the belief with deal number 1, but now you have the experience with deal number 3. The last thing, and this is what really irks me, is your goal isn't to be scaling when you're starting out. Do not say the word scaling if you've never done a deal before. I have so many calls with people and they have never done a deal before. And I explain to them how our program works, right? And where we will run the ads. We will help you analyze deals, and then we will then help you find the buyers for those deals. And then they ask me the question, are you going to teach me how to scale, Chico? And I'm like, man, you have not done a single deal yet, and you're asking me about scaling. Come on. There's no reason why that question should come up if you've never done a deal before. In fact, scaling should be the last thing on your mind. The thing on your mind should be, is how can I find a predictable way to do 3 deals a month? So let's say you did those 3 deals. That's $45K. Let's say that you spent $5,000 in marketing in order to generate enough leads for you to be able to do those 3 deals, right? Because we do inbound lead generation. So let's say you spent that much. We do Facebook and TikTok predominantly, but we can do all of them, but you get my drift. If you did that, and then now, say you had some virtual assistant doing some other miscellaneous stuff for you that you don't want to get involved with, not calling sellers. You don't want them calling sellers. Please, for the love of God. I've heard the most horrific calls recently of virtual assistants having conversations with sellers. And then the client says, oh, I can't close any deals. And I say, well, who's calling these leads? He says, oh, my virtual assistant. And then I say, send me a call. They send me a call. And I tell them, you are never going to close a door or a deal with that person on the phone. Fire them right away. You get on the phone. And if you don't want to get on the phone, then you might as well just give this business up. But so that's for a different conversation for a different day. But at the end of the day, if you did that, you're going to end up somewhere in the 35 to 38 range, right? I'm using, just, basic math, some fluffery there, but you get the drift. 35K. If you were making 35K a month right now, would you have the job you have? Would you be able to go on good vacations? If you're single, would you be able to go out on the clubs, open champagne bottles at every place you go, and then have a bunch of girls all over you? If you wanted that sort of thing. Ladies, I don't know what you do if you were single and had 35K, but maybe you could make a comment and tell me what you would do. If you're a family guy, you would take your family on amazing vacations. Your kid would go to different schools. You maybe have your wife not work or your husband not work. I don't want to discriminate, but you get the drift. 35,000 would have the most amazing impact on your life. So focus on that. Do that. When you get there, then you can decide what you want to do from there. It's like being on top of the mountain. You get to the mountain first, and then you look around and you say, oh, what else should I do? That is what you should be doing. Forget about scaling. Scaling is dumb if you've never done a deal before. Do not ever say that word scaling if you've never done a deal before. By the way, if you are interested in learning our model for virtual wholesaling, make sure you watch that particular case study right there. It's a 2-hour-long video. I gave you everything I had there for you to learn and understand our entire model. And if you want our help in implementing that, then go ahead and click on one of the links in the description.